Welcome to another installment of Donning the Armor. This morning we'll begin in Genesis chapter 42, verse 18. Then Joseph said to them the third day, "Do this and live, for I fear God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers be confined to your prison house. But you, go and carry grain for the famine of your houses. And bring your youngest brother to me, so your words will be verified, and you will not die, or you shall not die." So Joseph, having confined his brothers to a prison house for 3 days, is saying, okay, look, now one of your brothers is going to stay here to prove that you are honest men, because I fear God. And in the way he's saying God is not the Egyptian gods, the God that they understand as God. Saying, I fear God. But you'll go carry the grain for the famine to your houses, to your families. But then you're going to turn around and bring your youngest brother back. You're going to bring your brother Benjamin back to me so that your words will be verified, so I know you're not spies. Because if you don't, you shall die. You will die. And he's not just mentioning the brother that's confined to the prison house, because they could always just leave and not come back and I'll never see them again. But the famine's bad and Joseph knows how long it's going to last. So he's saying if you don't come back, you're never coming back to deal with us again. Therefore, you're never going to have food and you will die. So it's imperative that you guys go back, get your youngest brother, and come back to me. And they did so. Then they said to one another, "We are truly guilty concerning our brother. For we saw the anguish of his soul when he pleaded with us, and we would not hear. Therefore this distress has come upon us." So they know they were guilty, but now they realize they're in the same pleading position that Joseph was in when they were selling him to the Midianite traders. They see that he begged the same way that they are begging this governor over Egypt. That they understand now that the sin that they've tried their entire lives to distance themselves from, the payment for that sin is coming due now. That's the way they're starting to see it. And Reuben answered them, saying, Did I not speak to you, saying, do not sin against the boy? And you would not listen. Therefore, behold, his blood is now required of us. So that's what he's saying. Hey, did I not warn you not to do anything? I told you not to kill him. I was going to go back and save him. And this is what you did. And because you didn't listen, now the debt of his blood is coming upon us in this moment, in really our darkest moment, because we are starving to death. But they did not know that Joseph understood them, for he spoke to them through an interpreter. So they're right there still in front of Joseph, and they're speaking probably Aramaic. And Joseph, because he wanted to trick his brothers, is speaking Egyptian to an interpreter, and the interpreter is speaking Aramaic to them. They're thinking he can't understand them. But he does, and he turned himself away from them and wept. See, he can hear their anguish, he can hear it, and he wept out of sadness, probably having to relive the moments, but also probably out of anger, because at this point, he hasn't quite forgiven them. Then he returned to them again and talked with them, and he took Simeon from them and bound him before their eyes. So he grabbed Simeon. He had Simeon taken by his guards and bound them up while they watched, so they understood, this brother, this will be the last time you see him if you do not come back with Benjamin. Then Joseph gave a command to fill their sacks with grain, to restore every man's money to his sack, and give them provisions for the journey. Thus he did for them. So they loaded their donkeys with grain and departed from there. But as one of them opened his sack to give his donkey feed at the encampment, he saw his money, and there it was in the mouth of his sack. So Joseph's going to play some games with them, essentially. So he gives them the grain that they purchased from Egypt for their salvation. But he has his servants give them back their money. So it would almost look as though they took the grain without paying for it. And now that's going to create some worry of its own. So he said to his brothers, "My money has been restored, and there it is in my sack." Then their hearts failed them, and they were afraid, saying to one another, "What is this that God has done to us?" Because now they understand. Egypt is now going to think we didn't pay for this grain, that we stole this grain. And now their hearts are sinking. We just left Simeon there. We're now being cut off from trading anymore. And now they're going to think we stole what we already have. So now they're starting to feel some terror in their journey home. Then they went to Jacob, their father, in the land of Canaan, and told him all that had happened to them, saying, "The man who is the Lord of the land spoke roughly to us, and took us for spies in the country. But we said to him, 'We are honest men, we are not spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of our father, one who is no more, and the youngest is with our father this day in the land of Canaan.'" So they're going to give Jacob a rundown of what happened. That, we went there just to purchase like so many other people, but suddenly we were labeled as spies. That they thought we were coming as some scouts for an invading army to come and steal their grain. But we tried to explain to them what was happening. Because remember, they need to lay the groundwork for what they're going to actually ask Jacob to let them do. Then the man, the lord of the country, said to us, "By this I will know that you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers here with me. Take food for the famine of your households and be gone. And bring your youngest brother to me, so I shall know that you are not spies, but that you are honest men. I will grant your brother to you, and you may trade in the land." So they're saying, look, he pegged us as spies for whatever reason. We don't understand. We don't look like spies. But now this lord of the country, it took Simeon. He's going to hold him and said, you can take the food that you're buying now, but if you don't bring this youngest brother who you didn't produce here with you today, if you don't bring him back, you're going to be labeled as spies, and your brother's life is forfeit, and you will not be able to trade in the land anymore during this harsh famine. Then it happened as they emptied their sacks that surprisingly each man's bundle of money was in his sack. And when they and their father saw the bundles of money, they were afraid. So see, they saw the one bundle of money. They thought possibly it was a mistake, and they were scared enough at that. But when they saw that not one of them had paid, now everyone is terrified. And Jacob, their father, said to them, "You have bereaved me. Joseph is no more. Simeon is no more. And you want to take Benjamin. All these things are against me." So Jacob, already in his grief that has been going on since the death of Joseph, is saying Simeon is no more. He's already counting him as gone. He could easily send Benjamin back and get his son Simeon back. He could send Benjamin to Egypt with the rest of his sons and get Simeon back. But he's saying Simeon's no more. Simeon's already lost to me, because I won't let you take Benjamin. I won't let you take the last remaining son of Rachel. All you other sons are almost disposable by your other 3 mothers. But Rachel was my beloved. Joseph is gone, and I'm not going to let the same thing happen to Benjamin. All of these things are against me. We get grieved. We come up against trials. We come up against grief. We come up against tragedy. We look at all the things that are lined up against us. Jacob has promises directly from God to make his descendants number the sands of the desert, the sands of the sea, the stars in the sky, to be nation a nation that will bless the entire world. And all he can see in his grief are the things that have come against him, the things that aren't going the way he wished. That's all he can see in this moment. He can see nothing else but the bad times. That's one of the reasons why Jesus said that it was an adulterous generation that looks for signs and wonders. When we look for the miraculous, when we look only at blessings and tangible blessings that we can see and feel and touch, they don't lead us to a faith. Because faith, walking this Christian walk that we're on, will have ups and downs. And we need to be as David. For all his immorality, in that ups, downs, it didn't matter. David kept his eyes perfectly trained on God. Through his stumbles and his sin and his victories, his eyes never were removed from God to focus on something else. And here you have Jacob focused on something else. He has the promises of God. He has the blessings of 10 sons in his presence in this very moment. He is the blessing of food to help see them through a famine. None of that are in his sight right now. Only the negative. Because he's bereaved and it's taken his eyes from what is most important. Then Reuben spoke to his father, saying, "Kill my 2 sons if I do not bring him back to you. Put him in my hands and I will bring him back to you." And that is a very strong declaration. Reuben is saying, as the firstborn, "Father, if I do not bring Benjamin back, like I failed to bring Joseph back, then you can kill my 2 sons. You can take my 2 sons from me the way I essentially have taken your 2 sons from you." That the lives of my 2 sons are forfeit if I do not bring back your son. See, Reuben understands the grief of his father. Reuben himself has sinned against Jacob in some pretty bad ways, but he understands the responsibility he is supposed to have. And in this way, he is telling Jacob, look, I will bring your son back. I guarantee it on the lives of my 2 kids. But he, Jacob, said, "My son shall not go down with you, for your brother is dead, and he is left alone. If any calamity should befall him along the way in which you go, then you would bring down my gray hair with sorrow to the grave." So he's saying, Benjamin's not going. For his brother, Joseph is dead, and he is left alone. He's got 10 other brothers. But this is the way Jacob viewed this, and this is why all of these problems happened in the first place. Because he elevated his sons of Rachel above his sons from everyone else. He is not left alone. He is the lone son of his mother, sure, but he was never alone. But he's saying, should any calamity befall Benjamin, you would bring me dead. You would bring me to the grave. I would not be able to survive losing both of Rachel's children. So, moving on to chapter 43. Now the famine was severe in the land, and it came to pass when they had eaten up the grain which they had brought from Egypt, that their father said to them, "Go back and buy us a little food." So he refused to send Benjamin. And the famine's continuing, as Joseph knew it would. The famine's continuing along the way. Simeon is sitting in prison all of this time. And it's not until they had eaten up all the grain, that they had run out of food again, that Jacob says, "Go back to Egypt and go buy us more food." But Judah spoke to him, saying, the man solemnly warned us, saying, you shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. Remember, everyone had to purchase food through Joseph, specifically through Joseph. And Judah saying, look, we told you when we came back, we cannot go back to Egypt to buy food. We are not allowed, we are forbidden to do so unless we bring Benjamin with us. We told you then, and it's not going to change now just because you waited for some time to pass. If you send our brother with us, we will go and buy you food. But if you will not send them, we will not go down. For the man said to us, you shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. So Judah is saying, unless you send Benjamin with us, we can't go. We will not go because it's not going to profit us anything. We physically cannot go down there without Benjamin because we can't purchase without him, without proving ourselves as not being spies. And Israel said, why did you deal so wrongfully with me as to tell the man whether you still had another brother? And of course, this has been, like I've said, this has been the problem. But why did you deal so wrongfully with me as to tell the man whether you had another brother? Why were you honest? That's what Israel's saying. That's what Jacob's saying. Why were you honest? Why were you honest from the beginning? Why did you have to tell him anything about us? Why didn't you just go purchase grain and come back? Why does that man need to know anything about our family? And it's one of those weird things that sometimes parents will do, is they will try to raise their child up right. And then in some instances, when it comes back to bite the person, they'll say, why did you do that thing that I raised you to do? Why did you do that good thing? And it's just a weird thing parents do. I've had it from my own mother where I'll do something and then she'll ask me why I would do that. That was stupid. It would be like, because that's the way you raised me. And it was the proper thing to do anyway. And I guarantee it will happen to me when my kids started getting to be older as well. But this is how far his grief has fallen. This is how far he has allowed himself to be bereaved over Joseph's death all these years later, that he's become so protective over Benjamin that he's asking his brothers, how come they did right? How come you did me wrong by doing the right thing? And it's a sorry state to fall into that condition of grief. But they said, the man asked us pointedly about ourselves and our family, saying, is your father still alive? Have you another brother? And we told him according to these words. Could we possibly have known that he would say, bring your brother down? So Judah is saying, and the rest of his brothers are backing him up, like he asked very pointed questions, almost as if he had known us. So we told him according to the words according to these words, we told him the truth because he seemed to already know it. How could we have possibly known that he'd say, hey, you need to bring your other brother down here? He seemed like he already knew the truth, so we were answering truthfully. How could we have known that he would ask something of us? Then Judah said to Israel his father, send the lad with me, and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die, both we and you and also our little ones. So he's saying, send him with me. All right, you don't trust Reuben for whatever reason. Send him with me then, and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die. Because if they don't go, if Benjamin doesn't go with them, they all will die. The brothers will die, you, Jacob, you will die, and also all of your grandkids, our little ones, will also die, because we have no food. We will starve to death in this famine. Send Benjamin with me, and we will go, we will get what we need, and we will come back. Because we have no other choice. It's this or death. I myself will be surety for him. From my hand you shall require him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame forever. For if we had not lingered, surely by now we would have returned the second time. So he's saying, I will bring him back. I will bear the blame forever. It will be from my hand that you require him. That I give you this oath that I will bring Benjamin back. Because if we had not lingered, if we had turned around as soon as we got home when we told you this in the first place, if we had not lingered at all, we would have returned a second time by now. We would already have returned and come back. But you made us linger, and now we are running out of food. Now, if we do not take the boy, if you don't trust Reuben, trust me. If you don't trust me, then we die. Because without Benjamin, there is no food. And nothing is changing that. And their father Israel said to them, if it must be so, then do this. Take some of the best fruits of the land in your vessels, and carry down a present for the man, a little balm and a little honey, spices and myrrh, pistachio nuts and almonds. Take double money in your hand, and take back in your hand the money that was returned in the mouth of your sacks. Perhaps it was an oversight. Take your brother also, and arise, go back to the man. And may God Almighty give you mercy before the man, that he may release your other brother and Benjamin. If I am bereaved, I am bereaved. So he finally breaks down, does Jacob, and says, look, all right, if this is the way this has to be done, go take gifts. Give this man anything that we have to offer so that he will return your brother to me. That nothing else goes wrong as it did the first time. Take whatever we have that you can take with you as a gift. Take double the money because, maybe they left the money in your sacks as an oversight. Maybe that was a mistake. We don't want you thinking you stole. So take double the money. Go, and may God have mercy on you so that this trip will be profitable, and so that you are not oppressed or persecuted in any other way, that he will see the truth and he will release all 11 of you back to me. And if I am bereaved, I am bereaved. So Jacob is understanding there's no other way. This is the only way. And if something happens, let me be bereaved. There's no other choice. And there really is no other choice for Jacob. He is trying to protect Benjamin, but if Benjamin doesn't go, they all die, including Benjamin. They all starve to death. Sometimes there are no good options in life. Sometimes no matter what we try, the option that we have in front of us is going to be something we do not want to do, that we would not like. We always look at life as you could either choose this or choose that, and one of them's good. Well, sometimes they're both terrible, and you got to take the least terrible one. Jacob does not want to let Benjamin go, but it's either let Benjamin go, let go of him, and possibly run the risk of losing him the way you lost Joseph, when his brothers should have had him, when he was sent to go get his brothers, and they brought back his bloody cloak. You either run that risk of losing Benjamin in the same fashion, or you lose him to starvation. You have a definite loss or a possible loss. Those are your only two choices. There is no definite safety anymore. It is definite loss or possible loss. Those are two bad choices that Jacob don't want to risk. But he has no choice in the matter, because any rational person would know the possibility of loss is better than total loss. So the men took that present and Benjamin, and they took double money in their hand, and arose and went down to Egypt. And they stood before Joseph. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the steward of his house, "Take these men to my home and slaughter an animal and make ready, for these men will dine with me at noon." Then the man did as Joseph ordered, and the man brought the men into Joseph's house. So when they finally show up with Benjamin, and Joseph sees his younger brother, he says, "Okay, you run my household. Take these men to my home. We're now going to have a feast at lunch. Slaughter an animal, make everything ready. We're going to now have a feast with these men who did as they were told." Now the men were afraid because they were brought into Joseph's house. See, now they don't know what's going on, but now they're being taken from where you would buy the grain to Joseph's house. And now any number of things could be going through their head. They were accused of being spies. They had the money still in their pouches. They have no idea what's going on now. And they said, "It is because of the money which was returned in the sacks the first time, that we are brought in, so that he may make a case against us and seize us and take us as slaves with our donkeys." So they're going, we're going to end up as slaves. They think we stole. They think we stole the grain the first time, and that's why they're bringing us here, so that they can make the case against us, seize us, and make us slaves. When they drew near to the steward of Joseph's house, they talked with him at the door of the house, and said, "Oh, sir, we indeed came down the first time to buy food. But it happened when we came to the encampment," which is basically not a specific place. It just means when we went out to camp, "that we opened our sacks, and there each man's money was in the mouth of his sack, our money in full weight. So we have brought it back in our hand, and we have brought down other money in our hands to buy food. We do not know who put our money in our sacks." So they're saying, "Look, we're about to be turned into criminals here. They think we stole the money. So let's just come out forward, tell the steward the truth, and just tell him, look, we came down. We don't know why we had the money in our sacks, but we did. So we brought it back this time. We brought double the money we have. We're going to pay for the stuff we already took. We're not trying to cheat anyone." But he said, "Peace be with you. Do not be afraid. Your God and the God of your father has given your treasure in your sacks. I had your money." Then he brought Simeon out to them. So the steward says, "Look, it's fine. Peace be with you. Shalom. Do not be afraid. Your God and the God of your father has given you treasure in your sacks." He's basically saying, your money was returned as a reward, as a gift, because we had your payment. We took your payment. This was a reward from your God. So the man brought the men into Joseph's house and gave them water, and they washed their feet, and they gave their donkeys feed. Then they made the present ready for Joseph's coming home at noon, for they heard that they would eat bread there. So they made the present ready, the pistachio nuts, the honey, the balm, so that way they'd have it ready to present to him as soon as he came home at noon. Because they now were being told, hey, you're going to have bread, you're going to have food here, you're going to eat. You're not in any trouble. So now they're making the present ready. So that way they have everything all ready to go as soon as Joseph gets there. And when Joseph came home, they brought him the present which was in their hand into the house, and bowed down before him to the earth. Then he asked them about their well-being, and said, "Is your father well? The old man of whom you spoke, is he still alive?" And they answered, "Your servant, our father, is in good health. He is still alive." And they bowed their heads down and prostrated themselves. So once again, another image of the first dream that Joseph had way back before he was ever sold as a slave. That their wheat sheaves would bow to his. And here we see them once again bowing before their brother. Answering truthfully that yes, we have been gone for quite a little bit now, but our father is still well. He is still alive. Basically asking, how did you get your brother away from your father if he didn't want to let him go? Subtle questions, truthful answers. Then he lifted his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, and said, "Is this your younger brother of whom you spoke to me?" And he said, "God be gracious to you, my son." Now his heart yearned for his brother, so Joseph made haste and sought somewhere to weep. And he went into his chamber and wept there. Then he washed his face, came out, and he restrained himself and said, "Serve the bread." So as he's looking over his brothers bowing before him, he sees Benjamin, and he's so overcome with emotion that the grief for the times that he didn't get to spend, the joy of seeing his younger brother now, that he needed to get out of that room, that he needed to go weep and just let the emotion out. You know, sometimes we're told men should be super stoic. You're not allowed to weep. And that's this old thing people had. And I do believe in stoicism to an extent. But men are people. You have emotions you need to let out. You need to let them out. Sometimes when it comes to stoicism, it comes to time and place. Joseph understood this and understood this was not the time and place. So he went to his chamber to be alone and weep, not in front of everyone else. That's not a hard and fast rule, but when you're being stoic, as people want men to be, especially men have this super urge to be macho all the time, that emotions need to be released at times. And it's just stoicism tells us that there's a proper time and place. And Joseph is doing it in the proper time and place in this instance. And then he washed his face and he came back out and said, "Serve the bread." See, he restrained himself. That's where the stoicism comes in. He still has the emotion. He was overcome by it. But now he restrains himself. Now he becomes stoic once again, going in to the feast and allows himself to understand his position. See, as men, we're supposed to be leaders. We're supposed to put on a strong front for our families and for the people we lead. But as much as you can misread this as to be that we are supposed to be that in front of others, it is that time and place. Because we'll see him unleash his emotion later in front of others. Need to understand that as men, we can't allow ourselves to damage ourselves and in turn damage our own relationships by thinking we need to be emotionless robots. And I've seen a lot of it through my life, and I've seen a lot of people give this advice that you can't open up to your wife. Oh, that'll ruin your marriage if you open up to your wife. Oh, if your kids see you be emotional, oh, they're not going to have any respect for you. Like, no, that's not how that works. Showing you are a person doesn't make people hate you. If that a specific person does lose respect for you, you need that person's respect anyway. Stoicism is about being restrained and in control in those moments where you need that restraint and that control. But that's not all the time. There's a time and place for emotion. There's a time and place for stoicism. There's a time and place for a man to be who he is. And sometimes showing emotion is the way you need to lead. Because there are times when others need to see your emotion and draw strength from it. So they set him a place by himself, and them by themselves, and the Egyptians who ate with him by themselves, because the Egyptians could not eat food with the Hebrews, for that is an abomination to the Egyptians. So they couldn't be eating with each other. So although they're in the same place, possibly even at the same table, depending on how he was second to Pharaoh, so he might have a very large, one of those Gothic looking tables you would think of, but they have them separated. And they sat before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men looked in astonishment at one another. Then they took servings to them from before him, but Benjamin's serving was 5 times as much as theirs. So they drank and were merry with him. So now they are having really a proper feast, and they are amazed by the wealth and the provisions that are being provided for them by this governor of Egypt, this man whom they now have to deal with, who everyone deals with, who is second only to Pharaoh. But we can still see that although they're lined up, Benjamin is being served more, that he is being given better. But we don't see any resentment. They drank and were merry with Joseph and everyone at this feast. And this is something that we will come across, that some people will be served better than us. And if we are in the right mindset, it won't matter. Because the true feast that we look forward to as Christians is the wedding feast of the Lamb, where it won't matter what happens, because we'll be with Christ again. We will be in heaven with Christ. And that's all that's going to matter. See, all throughout this journey, Joseph's brothers have always looked at the earthly things. They looked at their earthly treatment. And in this, they are now, although I'm sure they are in all of the earthly treatment, and they are not disappointed by the portions they're being given, they are not now being jealous of the portion their younger brothers being given, in the way that they were once jealous of the treatment that Joseph got at their expense. All right, well, that'll do it for this installment of Donning the Armor. I hope it was fruitful for you. I pray to see you again next time. But until then, be blessed.